What sets your business apart in this competitive industry?
The number one thing that makes us different is consistency. The funny thing about our business is especially, I don't mean to be mean, but we see this all the time, is you got guys that are in this business that will go out, they'll sell something, they'll make a couple $100 and they're done for the day, right? What we drive, and some of our guys only work 2 days, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but we drive consistency at the dealership level.
Welcome to the Ride and Style Podcast, your turbocharged pit stop for automotive restyling. Buckle up with Jesse and Josh.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Ride and Style Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Stoddard, here with Josh Poulsen. This is episode 19, and today we have Rod Bennett of Chrome Enhancements as our guest, Rod. So thanks for being with us here today again.
Rod, thanks for joining. I've been wanting to have you on, so I'm glad we finally got the schedules to work out.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
So let's start from the beginning. What was the first day you saw something chrome?
Oh, wow. It's back in the 80s, man. It's all the way back at like 80, 86, 87. I started with Auto Trim Design out of Omaha, and came on with them as a installer. And back then they had the big wires that went on Buicks, you know, the big plastic wires.
Yeah. Was that you bought those from Dayton Wire?
That was from
Dayton?
Calvin, KT Trading back in the day.
Okay.
They still exist today. They're the ones that are in AutoZone and all over the place. But
okay.
Yeah, we started there and it took off, and I was selling about $30,000 a month of plastic wires to dealers, within a 200-mile range of our office. I got so good at it that they would call me easy money, because I'd go in and I'd install like 20 sets in an hour and walk out with $1,000, and they just started calling me easy money.
Oh man! So what I love about that is now that with you have all these guys that do this, you did it.
Yeah.
You were installer and sales.
I did it. Yeah. And I understand their pain too. There were days I went out for 10 hours and didn't sell a thing, so I had those days, but more often than not, we had great days, and it was fun.
Yeah. What other products did you do? Was it just hubcaps and
it was
wire?
Primarily back then. It was just primarily hubcaps, and we did some steel, stainless steel. Buicks were big back then. They had those pancake wheel covers on, and so the dealers hated those things. So I'd come in and I'd throw on those wires, or even the real nice LeSabres. I'd throw on the stainless steel with the locks, so nobody stole them, and all that. So.
How much did a set cost back then?
Oh, $55 for a set of hubcaps, and the stainless steels were like $165 with locks.
Ooh.
But I prefer not to do the stainless steels, because then you had to basically unbolt and lock them on, and the other ones you just popped them off and popped those on, put the GM logos on illegally, and you were good to go. I think statute of limitations are over, so I think I can say that now.
87, yeah, you're good.
Okay, good.
Rod, how did you even get started in automotive? Like, if you went way back even before that, what got you into the industry? What was the driving force for you to make a decision to even get into this stuff?
Yeah, so I had just gotten married and needed a job, really, and I had a bunch of friends that were in the business. They were stripers. And I never had the talent to stripe. I couldn't lay a straight stripe if you paid me $1 million. No way. I just don't have that talent. So there was some new stuff that they were looking at, and they asked me if I wanted to give it a try. And that's really how I got started. But I'm like Josh. I'm not a big car guy. I'll drive whatever you give me. It doesn't matter. I've driven all the cars, that people love, but to me, just give me a Chevy or give me a Dodge truck or whatever, and I'm good. So it's kind of weird that Josh and I are similar that way. I'm not a big car guy. Don't go to car shows, but care less.
So you love the business side, right?
Love the business side, yeah. And I get a kick out of, the guys that are just big, huge, gearheads and that, because I don't get it, but I get a kick out of them.
Yeah. No, they're all cute and sweet. I have them on every once in a while. Every seems like every other show. And I talk to them about it. I kind of make fun of them a little bit, but no, it's good. Their heart's in the right place, I guess. So when did so you worked for Auto Trim of Utah, and then how long did you stay there, and what did you do after that?
Yeah, so I worked at Auto Trim of Omaha.
I'm sorry, Utah.
No, that's okay. No,
Curtis is gonna text me going, dude, he never worked for me. Sorry.
Right. No, yeah. So I worked there for maybe a couple years, and what ended up happening is we had a falling out, and so I started my own business with one of the other guys that worked there called Auto Graphics, who's in business today, and doing very well. So I did auto graphics for about 2-3 years, but I just got tired of the winters. Back then, global warming hadn't taken place, so it snowed all the time, right? Back in the 80s, it was snowy here. So, I got tired of the winters, and my wife at the time was working for a call center company, and it was just getting started. It was small. And she said, these guys are really smart. I think they got something. You should come over here and try it. So for the winter, I said I was going to go work there part-time and give it a try. And then I spent 21 years building call centers all around the world. So
oh my god,
I got out of this business for a little while.
Yeah. So tell us about the call center world. What is that? If you don't understand the call center world, I believe it or not, I actually interviewed for a call center job one time, and they were definitely going to hire me, but I was right at that last minute. My old boss called me back and said, hey, because they called him as a reference, and he said, dude, where are you trying to get a job? Why don't you just come back to work for me? I was like, oh, okay. So, but I almost went to work at a call center for you.
Josh, I don't want to ruin your dreams and all that, but we would do what we call the mirror test. And if people could, if the mirror fogged up, if you put it next to their mouth, we'd hire them. That's basically.
So what you're saying is I wasn't the most qualified person.
I'm saying that.
It's because I had a blood and oxygen coming through and a heartbeat that they were willing to bring me on.
That you're hired. And it was funny because all the call centers were growing so fast. That really was, if you could breathe, talk, and you seemed like you weren't going to kill the other agents, then we'd hire you, and it was an amazing business. I have so many stories over 21 years, and the business that we were in the direct response business. So anything that you see on TV with an 800 number, we handled it, right? So the calls would come to us, and when we started back in '91, we had one call center. And when I retired from the call center business in 2012, we had over 55 call centers, over 40,000 home agents. We had the largest IVR platform on the planet. We had the largest outbound call center group in the world. I mean, we had, in 21 years, it just exploded. So it was just a blur. But in the meantime of all that, we would, the direct response side, if you ever watch TV at night, from Howard Stern's Herbal Ecstasy to Tybo to you name it, whatever's on TV, we would handle it. And what would end up happening is those call patterns were insane because you just never knew what was going to happen based on the media that you were running, based on the circumstances that were happening. So it was a crazy business.
And what were you setting them up? You were setting up and organizing call centers. So you were were you also managing people and training and all that kind of stuff and all scripting that. And
everything?
Wow.
Everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was senior vice president of operations when I retired, and basically it covered all of what you just said. And it was a real trick because you had 40,000 people who worked from home. And then in those call centers, I think we had over 28,000 people in the call centers all around the world, Philippines, India, Manila, you name it, we had it there. And trying to keep track of all that stuff. And route calls. Our network operations center was like NASA. I mean, there were we built the walls that had screens. I can't tell you how many television sets were combined to make these screens, and you'd have all this monitoring up there. So when you walked in, it looked like you were walking into Houston and NASA with everything that was going on. It was unbelievable. It's just because you were doing billions and billions of transactions, whether they be a second or whether they be 30 minutes long. We would take the voting for certain shows that are still on TV, where choose the person that you want to win this contest. I still can't talk about it because I'm on an NDA for life. NDA for life. So
hypothetically, let's say it's American Idol or something like that, and you want Jesse to win over Rod. You dial the 800 number. Your company keeps track of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Funny story is I would get reports on the voting because it would come in that night, and you'd have to wait a week, right? So I would always be sitting at home with my wife a week later, and I knew what was going to happen, and so she had no idea. She had no idea I knew, and so I would always pick the winners, and she would be like, "You have amazing." You have amazing ways to rate talent, Rod.
Yes.
You should really get a job in this space.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I probably should, but I'm too busy.
Better yet, you should be a judge on American Idol.
Right?
It's Simon sitting next to Rod, and Rod's like, "Yeah, I really like the way she sings," knowing that she's gonna win.
Right?
Wow. Oh my.
So did you also have to fly all over the world and physically be in these offices in India and the Philippines and all over the place? I mean, that's crazy amount of travel that must have been.
Yeah, I did. I was in Singapore a lot, Philippines a lot, India a lot, Mexico a lot. It was all a blur. It really wasn't any fun because you went there to work. I mean, I went to Egypt and never saw anything. I went to India and never saw anything. Went to the Philippines and nearly got killed once trying to get a knockoff purse for my wife at the time. But that's about as much fun as I had. It was all work, but it was cool to put together what we put together. It was really unbelievable.
Oh, well, I'm sure you didn't stick out in India, Egypt, or Singapore. I mean, you're like, what, 6'3",
Listen, the Philippines is where it was at because they were so Americanized. When you show up and you're 6'3.5", I mean, it's like you are just like a superstar. You're a rock star. Yeah. They come running to you, and it's hilarious.
Oh, my gosh.
I was going to ask, have any of those skills transferred over into what you're doing now? Or, I'm sure you learned so much, right? There's got to be some things that you use or sales training or something.
Yeah, we were on a call this morning. In fact, we were talking about the initiatives for this year and adjusting them and those types of things. And we always have 3 initiatives. We never go any more than 3 initiatives. And I was taught that as I was coming up in the company that I worked for, is if you get more than 3, then you have way too much going on and you're not going to be good at the 3 that you really should be focusing on. So, it's things like that I learned and just the logistics of setting up call centers, the operational side of things, putting together things, working as a team. You can't do that alone. I mean, you're working with multiple different departments and multiple different personalities, and some people have multiple different languages. So, I got pretty good at speaking Indian English, which is not an easy thing to do. The international lines get cut in the ocean, and you're on the phone with Indian technology people that really can't speak the language, and so you have to decipher what they're saying and work with them to get it done. It's not easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
This guy writes a mean script too, Jesse. If you need him to write out a script, like he helped us at SEMA Pro. Like when we make phone calls and try to help people, like, well, what can we do? Rod's like, come on, give me 10 minutes. He just sits over his computer, and then you got this professional script. I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like 1-800. It's like you dial at midnight 1-800, and hey, welcome, thank you for joining SEMA Pro. Here's our 4 benefits, and we'd love for you to. I'm like, oh my gosh.
We got so good at script writing that we would have at any given time 4 or 5 scripts that we would present through our CRM, depending on where you called from. So if we see that your Annie's calling from Texas, your Annie being your automatic number identifier, right? So we know that you're calling from Texas. We would have a different script for you than we would have for somebody who's dialing from North Dakota.
Did you teach people how to use, like, maybe even do their dialect? Like, hey, y'all, thanks for calling 800.
Oh, yeah.
The good sellers could adjust.
That we had some Philippine and Indian folks that would call themselves cowboy. That was their name. Hey, thanks for calling. This is cowboy. They get that dialect down, and you'd never know you were talking to somebody in the Philippines.
All of a sudden you see New York come in or Jersey. You're like, what? What do you want to buy? Hurry up. Oh, that's great. So tell Jesse the Amazon story, if you would.
Oh, man. Don't quote me on this, I think, but it was back in 2008. I was recruited by Amazon to come to work for them in Seattle. I would have been your neighbor, probably. Still probably would have been your neighbor. And they offered, they had a recruiter track me down, went through the interview process, and they hired me and gave me an offer. And I took it back to my wife, and she said that she didn't want to go to Seattle because it's too rainy, and that this Amazon company was too questionable because they just really haven't figured out what they wanted to do. And we'd be risking our career, my career, and obviously our family's risk there. So, fast forward, that offer, just so you guys know, that offer included up to 300,000 shares of stock options just at that point. Imagine had I say. Now here's the crazy part. The strike price, if I remember right, it was sub 4. It was $3.92. When I want to make myself sick, I go back and I pull the numbers on just if I would have exercised those 300,000 shares today, I wouldn't be on this phone call. I'd be on my yacht somewhere. It's crazy.
You said you'd be living next to Jesse? No, Jesse would be living in one of your neighborhoods.
Maybe so.
Oh, you're doing the math, Jesse. What is it?
Well, no, I just was pulling up today's price. It's $180 a share right now. What could you have got it for?
$3.92. And now that doesn't include the splits that have happened, Jesse.
The splits.
So I think if I ran the numbers, it was a $5,000 increase from inception of the stock, 5,800 or something like that. So to do the math, it's astronomical, and it just makes you sick. So I don't do it. I don't regret it, though. I don't regret it. You can't look backwards,
And you don't like talking about it, so only when I bring it up constantly whenever we're in a group. Hey, Rod, tell him the Amazon story. He's like, shut up, Josh.
Man, my stomach.
Why don't you just punch me?
I would probably be dead by now, though. When you think about it, I'd probably be dead because of that growth that they had. I mean, these people that work for these companies, the burnout is just insane. And I just can't even imagine what I was already on a high from, building 35 call centers at the time, and we were still going. So I was running 1,000,000 miles an hour. But, man, that growth over, 20 years probably would have put me in the ground. So probably a good thing that I didn't do it.
So once you retired from the call centers, what made you get back into Chrome and cars? I mean, you're not a car guy.
Yeah, it's a funny story. So I actually got back into the car business in 2006. I retired from call center in 2012. And I'll tell you why I got back in the business at that time. Cliff, Cliff Bennett, my cousin.
Yep.
Who's now my stepbrother, but that's a story for another day.
That's weird, but that's
that is weird. But we can talk about that another time.
We have interviewed people from West Virginia, so everybody understands. My wife's from West Virginia, so she understands.
So we get it. You just lost all your West Virginia listeners.
My one listener,
all
in West
one
Virginia.
of them. Yeah,
it's just Amanda's uncle. He'll stay tuned in. It's fine.
That's awesome. So Cliff was running our home agent business. He had run call centers for me. He's a great relationship guy. A great sales guy, and he ran my Beaumont call center down in Texas for a long time. And then we transitioned over to home agent, where we were growing those 40,000 home agents. And what ended up happening is Cliff's not a technology guy. And so the home agent platform was full of technology. So it was outgrowing him. So at some point I had to lay him off at 2006. And talk about bringing your cousin in and telling him he's fired. That wasn't very much fun. But what I told him is, hey, Cliff, go out and find something that you want to do, and I'll invest in it. He said, so, take a couple weeks, go find something. 2 weeks later, he comes back in and he has these products for me, and it's the same stuff. It's just an upgraded version of what I did in 80, whatever it was, 7.
And he knew but wait, he knew what you did.
Yeah, he knew.
So
he actually worked back then in that. So he went back into that field, investigated what was available now, and in 2006, it was upgraded. There was a lot more things to do to cars, and so he says that we've got this little niche product set of handles, mirrors, and grills and wheel skins. He goes, I think I can sell these to dealers. And I said, well, what do you need? He said, well, inventory is the problem. I need $100,000. I said, well, we'll make it happen. So that was the start of Chrome Enhancements at that time. We invested $100,000 in inventory, brought it in, and he started selling it like crazy. Then we brought on Sean, who's my other cousin. He started selling it like crazy. Then we just started adding guys. And what ended up happening is in 2008, that recession hit real hard. Mm-hmm. And then everybody that was in construction called us up and said, hey, we hear that you're doing some product with this, that, or the other thing. And so by 2012, when we sold the company to LKQ Keystone Automotive, we were in 43 states and we had 47 reps at that time, and it was overwhelming. And I retired from call center on April 1, 2012, and I sold the company to LKQ on April 1, 2012.
Yeah,
right.
So there you go. There you go.
But they convinced me to stay on.
Yeah.
And then a year ago I bought it back from them.
So Jesse, think of that. So it was pretty recession proof, right?
Oh, it gets better when it's tough because they're trying to move cars, and the longer those cars sit there, the more they want. The uglier they are. They want them out of their sight, and so we convince them, hey, make them pretty, and they'll move, and they do.
Yeah. So then in 2012, you became an employee for Keystone.
I did. Yep.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing, using their money to grow and using their inventory to grow, which was much, much better because I used to go to the post office box. We did payroll once a month. It was on the 15th. And so on the 14th, I would go to the post office box. I would get on my knees. I would pray that there was enough money in that post office box to make payroll tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this was people would see this, and this was an ongoing thing for months. And I had just gotten to the point where, I can't live this way because the payroll was huge. I mean, it was big. And so that's when I talked with Mitch Nunes at CCI Keystone, and he said, hey, we'd love to have you. And that's what ended up happening.
Awesome. And then you bought it back last year.
I did. I bought it back last year.
What made you decide to do that?
Well, I had begged them to sell it to me for the last 5 years, back to me for the last 5 years. And, it was just one of those things where they're a $15 billion company, and we're this small niche business down here. And, you get caught up in all that corporate minutia, and it's very hard to grow and run a business because, you want to buy a vehicle for a new person and you got to go through 35 layers of approvals and then it takes forever, right? It's not like I can go down and buy a car right down here and get a guy started tomorrow. Yeah. So it was getting very hard to work through that. They were great. Don't get me wrong. LKQ and Bob Reedy and those guys, they were awesome. But it just got to be too much. It got to be overwhelming to not be able to move. So for 5 years, I begged them. And then the 1 year I didn't beg them, they came to me and said, hey, we're shutting you down. I said, don't shut me down. Let me buy it back. So they did. They sold it to me, and now we're back at it again. I'm back to the post office praying.
He's got the little pad. At least put a pad down for your knees,
Right.
The mailman doesn't drive over it. Go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to ask, what are some of the toughest challenges that you faced in this industry? And you're coming from another industry, so I'm curious your perspective and what are the big challenges and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jesse. You know, for most people in the call center business, it was retaining people. In this business, it isn't that, because the people that we have very loyal. That's one of the things I love about the business that I have is these people have been with me, and we've been together for years, all dating all the way back to 2006. You know, so the retention issue isn't a problem. The supply chain is the problem. You know, so you get these parts and they become real hot, and so you sell through them very quickly. And if you need more of those parts, it's on a long boat from China or Taiwan, right? And so you're basically sitting there with the ability to sell ancillary products, but you need this product to fulfill the package. And some people won't do the car unless you have the full package. So you're losing out on revenue. And that's not the biggest thing for me. Is losing out on top line revenue is not a big concern. It's about feeding those families and giving them what they need to provide a living for those guys. So the biggest issue for me today is supply chain. Now, when the cargo ship hit the bridge in Baltimore the other day, huge problem for me. Huge problem for me. Because my main supplier brings their product in through the Baltimore channel. So, you know, immediately you get on the phone, what does this mean? Well, you know, we're going to have to reroute to New Jersey or New York. We were talking about rerouting through Texas. You know, so you don't know how long that's going to take. So you kind of say, well, it's the 7th busiest harbor in the United States, 7th or 9th, one of the two. They're going to get that ship out of the way, and they're going to figure it out, and they're going to move that stuff, because the United States itself can't afford to have that port shut down for any, you know, extended length of time. But those are the issues that you deal with. You know, COVID, you know, was another one that, you know, you hate to say that 5-letter word, but that's another thing that you're like, okay, for 3 months we were dead in the water, you know, and you try to pay your people, you try to keep, you know, and then, you know, federal programs you got to chase, and they're difficult to understand. Josh, you know that. You did it too. It's like those are the biggest challenges. The funnest part is taking and doing product development and the sales part of it, and getting people familiar with the product. And once they get familiar with it and they see that their cars move fast, it's just real simple. Yeah. It's a real simple business model.
How's the product changed since 06?
Oh man.
I mean, back then you were doing almost all Chrome, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. Now, here's what I've seen, and I stayed in touch with the business when I was in call center because I had friends that were in it. Yeah. But what you see is Chrome black, Chrome black, Chrome black, right? That's the way it's happened since '84, and it's gone through that cycle probably 3 or 4 times. We are definitely in a blackout, you know, world right now where, you know, everybody wants black. There are some states and cities that are more Chrome, but you know, a lot of black. And I give credit to, you know, Najee and Colby over at Trim Illusion. What they've manufactured on the black side, unbelievable. You know, and the product quality, unbelievable. So we're putting their stuff on new cars now and new car packages, where we used to just focused on used. We were 100% used for a long time, and our ratios are really changing because the quality of product that match the OEM packages. So, you know, you got Honda who has a OEM package and it's all blackout, and they can't get enough of them. Dealers are trading for $1,000 to get those, paying $1,000 to get those vehicles that have the blackout, and we tell them you don't need to do that. Hold on a second, we can do that package for you right here, right now, without you having to spend $1,000 on a dealer trade, and we'll save you half the money. Yeah, you know, and it's an easy sell.
And they can mark it up.
They mark it up to $2,000. Yeah.
And on new car, it's easily financed in, because on a new car, it's lower interest rate. You can finance right in the deal. Whereas a used car, that's going on to, you know, the bottom line of that car. It's a little harder to pass it on to the customer without raising the rate or putting an addendum in the window. So do you see that trend? I mean, what would be the ideal percentage new versus used for your team?
Well, right now it's probably 85-15.
Used.
I'd like
85% used.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get that 60/40 new. And the reason for it is if you develop new car packages, you can always go to the used car lots and you'll have that package. If you're developing for used cars, you can't always go to new cars because they change the body style, et cetera, et cetera. So if we focus on new development and new sales, then the used side is just gravy.
Yeah, because if you come out with this brand new Ford, it's good not only for the 4 years that it's still a new car, that new model, but then it's a good used car for another 4 years. So that same SKU can carry you for 8 years instead of maybe just 4.
That's right. And in some cases, when you look at some of the parts like door handles, they don't change those. The design of the car might change, but a lot of times they keep the design of the door handle the same. So then I don't have to remanufacture that door handle. That might span a cover of 12 years. Because the OEMs do that because they're sourcing, it makes sense for them, and the body style didn't require it, But as these cars get more, the electric cars and those things, and they're getting more like futuristic, then yeah, it's going to mean that we're going to have to do more development and manufacturing.
Well, before Jesse asks you a question, all right, pop quiz. Here we go. We always put a guest on the spot sometimes. Name me 2 of your top SKUs. What's the part number?
Wouldn't be able to tell you. I really wouldn't be able to tell you.
Jesse, it's going to be, let's see if I can get my camera to do it the thumbs down. No, you got an 8649 or something.
Here's what I'll tell you. A 68135 BLK fits a Chevy, and that's the part number I always use when I'm using an example and I need a part number. So that's really the only part number that I'm good at.
That counts. You get the thumbs up. That counts.
but here's what I'll tell you. I can tell you the gross margin that every one of my sales people bring to the bottom line, and for me that's the most important things because I got to pay the bills and I got to make payroll. So
see, I can't do that, but I can tell you part number. So that tells you how good things I'm running. So
Rod, speaking of which, what sets your business apart in this competitive industry? What makes you guys different, and what do you pride yourself on?
Yeah, so good question, Jesse. The number one thing that makes us different is consistency. The funny thing about our business is especially, and I don't mean to be mean, but we see this all the time, is you got guys that are in this business that will go out, they'll sell something, they'll make a couple $100 and they're done for the day. Right? They go to the bar, they who knows what they do, but they've made their money, they go home. What we drive, and some of our guys only work 2 days, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but we drive consistency at the dealership level. If we're there Tuesday at 9 o'clock, guess what? Next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, guess where we're going to be? Following Tuesday at 9 o'clock, guess where we're going to be? We stress that, and even if they don't make 9, at least it's Tuesday morning, that they're there. So our customers have the confidence in us that we're going to be there. And that's the number one differentiator with us, because if we're putting parts on their car and something happens to those parts, they need to know that they can reach out to us and we'll fix it, right? Because that's the number one thing with dealers is I don't know if I can trust you, and I don't know if you'll be here tomorrow, so I'm not buying, right? So that's the number one thing. The second thing is we strategically partner with key people. Like Trim Illusion is the most aggressive manufacturing company in our space right now. So we have a really, really solid relationship with those guys. We feel like they're part of our family. We talk every day. They're part of our meetings. We're part of their meetings. We help them with development ideas. We test products for them. And we do the same thing for LKQ, Keystone, and others. But they're more of a family and they're more aggressive. Everybody else is taking a little bit more time to develop. From start to finish, it might be 18 months to get a SKU from somebody. With Najee and Colby, it might be 4 to 6 months. That's how fast they're moving. And so, that's a differentiator for us is we position ourselves with the more aggressive, more strategic people in the industry so that we can stay on top of it. And it also allows us with our buying power. We are the largest direct-to-dealer distributor of these products. So with our buying power, it allows us to do some strategic things that maybe the competition doesn't have that opportunity. And it's just because we do so much volume that we get that. So it's like we're Starbucks, but you got all these other coffee shops out there that make a good living in that. But when you're Starbucks, you usually get what you want and you get it at better pricing, right?
Yeah. What I love about their business, Jesse, it's like it's the old school 1950s milk route, right? It's the guy who brings up his little carton and he puts 4 glasses and he goes, "Mrs. Jones, do you want 5 next week? Yes, please." And next week they bring 5, but they're there every week, consistent, and they build these relationships with these used car managers. Some of them have a leash long enough where the used car manager just trusts them. Yeah, go take care of what you need done, and they just sends them an invoice. That's the relationships they build where they're almost part of the dealership. And I mean, it's a home run. Where do you see the business going in the next few years? Obviously, you talked about new car, but anything else?
Yeah, so the new car side of things, with CARS Act that you're very familiar with, the F&I companies are going to have a harder and harder time selling vapor to consumers and getting away with it. Mm-hmm. And so, we see the hard products that we're developing and that we can put together. They match OEM packages that already exist today. Yeah. So we see that growth is really going to happen there, and that the F&I companies will recognize that. We've had F&I companies reach out to us in the past. I think that in the very near future, we're gonna see a lot more of that. So that's really the biggest issue right now is what is it going to look like in the F&I area in the next 5 years for dealerships, and how are they going to be able to monetize, because they're not making very much money, especially now post-COVID. Now things are getting more back to normal. Inventory are back up again. They're not going to make as much per copy, and so they got to find other ways to make money.
Yeah, well, and our industry has it because we actually, have what's called a hard ad. So, and Jesse, I don't know how familiar you are with this. So you understand this in the F&I business. Some of our listeners may not, but in the F&I, you have these products that they sell, but they're all cancelable. So if you buy a warranty or gap or anything like that, and you decide, no, I don't want this, you just cancel it, and that profit goes right out the window. Whereas if you finance a hard ad or something that they put on the car and you finance it, you can't cancel that. I mean, the dealership gets their profit, and we as the third party accessory get our profit, and the dealership and the customer has to buy it. You wanted it, you can't just take a couch back after you buy it and sit on it for 60 days. So and the CARS Act is really helping us because they're cracking down, like Rod said, on F&I. So kudos to you guys for really jumping in there and being part of that team, the F&I department. Go ahead, Jesse.
Rod, I wanted to go back actually just for a minute. We were talking about the relationships that you guys built in the dealerships, and that to me is it's a fascinating topic. First of all, I have a couple questions, but mainly I want to know how did you establish that to begin with? Because that's actually harder than it sounds. And then do you think that it's going to change with how things are changing in the industry? Or is it always going to be the mainstay of the business and the best strategy that what did Josh say, the milkman business?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jesse. So really it comes down to, you have to make a cold call, right? You walk into the dealership and it's cold. And they may know you, they may not. From a brand perspective, they may have heard of you, but if they don't know you, then you have to develop that relationship. And I got to tell you, I've got some of the best guys in the world, I believe, at developing relationships in less than 10 minutes. Cliff Bennett, he can be your best friend in 5. And I got a story I'll tell you about that one. But Mike Zemer, Jim Nelson, Matt Shumley, these guys can go in and can talk to a dealer and can get them to say yes on the first stop without them knowing anything about you or your business, right? That is the key, is to have, when we get new people, we bring experienced people in and relationship builders in with them, so that it's not so hard on them, and you develop that. Now, the strategies that we have now is we're much more into social media. They will see our brand on a Facebook before we go in and see them on a cold call. So we've got a process that we've built that we get in front of these buying customers before we ever send a person in. So that helps too. So there are strategies like that, but that really is the key. Real quick, tell you a quick story about building relationships, because I think it's funny, one for one, and it just shows you the key to it. Is I owned a software company called Ballyhoo Autowear, and it was a configurator where the F&I departments could click on a product and it would go on the vehicle, and the customer could see it and say, yeah, I want to buy that, right? That's what Ballyhoo Autowear was. And so we went to NADA a couple times, and Reynolds had a company called Add-on Auto. And it kind of did the same thing, but theirs was kind of, old school and didn't look as pretty as ours. So every year at NADA, all the dealers loved to look at ours because ours was Appleistic and theirs was old school. And so one day at NADA, Bob Brockman, who owned Reynolds at the time, the largest tax evader in in U.S. history, who's now deceased. But he walked by our booth, and he just absolutely started going crazy on the head of mergers and acquisitions that he was walking next to, and said, "I can't believe you told me there was nobody else in this business that doing this." Make a long story short, they invited us down to Texas. We walk in, and Cliff goes up, and he, "Hi, Mr. Brockman." He goes, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I know so much about you. You've built an incredible company. I'm just glad to be here." And he goes, "Cliff, don't call me Mr. Brockman. Call me Bob," right? Then I follow up. I say, "Bob, nice to meet you. Heard a lot about you. And so glad that you guys had us down." And he stops with a serious face and he says, "Never call me Bob. You call me Mr. Brockman." Right? Right?
Cliff has the ability.
He's got it. He's just a likable guy. They can see it. He's got a big heart he wears on his chest. And the guy knew that I was there to take his money. And I eventually did. But at the end of the day, I called him Mr. Brockman all the way through that process of selling the company. And Cliff always got to call him Bob.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, that's great. What do you think is going to happen in the aftermarket automotive industry? It's changing. What should we be looking for? What's your crystal ball tell you?
Sky's the limit. I mean, when you read all the SEMA reports and all the analytics out there about the industry, it's going to grow. And the beauty of it is the OEMs are actually, because of everything they've got going on, they're actually pulling back on some of their models and their trim designs. And, so the OEMs are going to back off, which means it opens up a lot of doors for us to pursue those different trims and trim styles that the dealers are going to say, we used to be able to order this vehicle with this color of mirror cap on it or whatever, or door handle. It's not available anymore, right?
Yeah.
Well, don't worry, we've got it. Let us take care of it for you. So, in my industry, I look at it like this is a great thing. And I think for the overall industry, not just my niche business, is I think the future's got a lot of potential on it. And as technologies grow, I think that it just opens up a lot of doors. The key is our industry's aging. So, my bigger concern is how are we going to support the dealerships, the retail public, when our industry's aging out? I'm 58, and I don't have anybody family-wise that's going to take over this business, So what do you do? And so I think that we as an industry need to focus more on getting young people involved, teaching them our business, getting them excited about the business. And I think if we do some of that, then I think that overall the aftermarket industry will do well.
Yeah, I agree. Very good. We would be remiss to not mention that Mr. Rod Bennett was 2021, right? SEMA. So you were SEMA Pro Person of the Year.
Was?
Yeah,
yes.
2021. Funny story. Maybe you can tell us how you accepted that award.
See, I think all of the hard, bad decisions while traveling around the world caught up with me. back there in 2021, and I had some health issues that I had to address. And so Josh was kind enough to call me up and say, "Hey, you won this award. Can you take it mobile?" And I said, "Sure." And so yeah, we did it over the phone, and it was exciting. The funny thing is it actually worked out better because I was sitting in my dad's house, and my dad just passed away, but he would, when I would go over there, the number one thing he didn't say, "How's the family? How's the kids? How's my grandkids?" It's, "How's the business going? What's new in the business?" And so I'm sitting in his living room, and Josh calls, and my dad's like, "What's going on?" He says, "Josh just told me I won SEMA Pro Person of the Year." And my dad's like, he can barely walk. He like jumps out of his rocking chair and he's doing this, "Yeah, son, way to go." So awesome. It was awesome. It was an exciting thing. And I was very grateful for that, Josh. And
well, you couldn't see it because, we were on FaceTime, but he had a standing ovation at the reception, but little, it wasn't as good as if you were in person, but it's still awesome that, better to win the award and not be there versus never win the award and be there all the time. So,
right? That's right.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, as we're finishing up here, about your experience with Pro, and should people join, or should they even run for the select committee? Tell them a little bit about your experience.
Absolutely. I tell you, I joined Pro thinking, I'll try this out, just to see. And I wanted to network a little bit with the other people in the industry. And it really surprised me. I will say this, about the first 3-4 months, I'm like, I don't know if I got myself into something that I really want to be part of. But, honestly, and again, I'm not knocking Pro of the past, but, we needed to take a step forward on initiatives and things like that versus just talking about old times and what we've done in the past. And there were a lot of good things done, so I don't want to criticize that. But we needed to take steps forward. And, Josh, when you were chair and Colby chair-elect, a lot of new programs come up. You asked me to be part of the membership team, and Kevin and I led the membership team. And, we grew that membership team, substantially over a period of a year and a half. And what I would say is I met unbelievable people that I learned a ton. And at 58, I'm like, I can't learn anymore, but I keep learning. And just unbelievably good people that want to grow their businesses, that want to be part of something. That's the place to be in the restyling industry. You must be a Pro member.
Yeah.
I did step down because I bought this business back, and there's a lot, so I wasn't able to give the time. But I'm still part of Pro. I'm still part of SEMA, and I still follow the events and everything else. So it's an amazing thing.
Well, you'll be happy to know, thanks a lot to you, that we finally got over that hump, and we're at the 300 plus member mark. Because, I remember when Rod was taking over membership, we had to build back to plus 200, and then when plus 250, it was like, but we now have eclipsed the 300 plus mark. Yep. So thanks a lot to your hard work, and Kevin, you guys did an awesome job. But listen, Pro for 30 years has done a great job, but you have to change with the times. You have to be relevant, and it's more about what does the industry or what do our members need. And that's right. Why guys like Rod has always been instrumental to that, because he brings a fresh perspective, plus, his non-Amazon perspective, but his call center perspective that he can bring to the table too makes it great. So thank you for your support in that area. Oh. I'll let Jesse ask his, usual final question. Yeah, or unless you had 10 more.
No, just a little bit more. Rod, what are you most excited about right now in your business, and what are you looking forward to doing?
What am I most excited about? Just all the future opportunities that we've got going. We've got a lot of things going right now that I can't get into too much, but we're looking at how to best position ourselves to grow our business and to provide a better product and service to our customers. And so we have, in the next year, we have some really cool things that are in line that we've been working on for a couple, even, going back buying the business back, some initiatives that we were working on that now that we own the business and we don't have to get permission to do anything. If we make a bad decision, we pay for it. Now we can move a lot faster. We can be strategic beyond what we were before. That's what excites me. And having the incredible team that we have, I mean, really, there isn't, when I look at our entire infrastructure, there is not a person in our team that I would say, they're a D player. We'll let them on the bus, but really, we hope they fall out the back. We don't have any of those, so, we've got unbelievable that are very loyal.
Yeah, I just one more question is how do people get a hold of you? What's your website? Where do you want people to go if they have questions for you?
Yeah, go to www.chromeenhancements.com. It's a long one, but it's worth it. One of the things that we've updated our website just recently is we do offer free packages to customers. And we'll come out, we'll put it on all for free just to show you that it works and that vehicle will move faster than any other vehicle you got on the lot. So come out, see us there. You can always reach out to me in Omaha, 877-600-4999. Love to talk, even if you just want to talk about business in general or network. I'm always available. I love to talk to new people, and Pro taught me that. Pro taught me that it's important to network and to find out what's going on, because what's happening in Seattle is different than what's happening in Omaha and different than what's happening in Baltimore. So, it's always fun to talk to different people.
Well, thanks again for being on, brother. You are a good man, a great leader, got a great team, and it's a lot of fun to be around. So if I ever go to the Philippines, guess who I'm taking, Jesse? I'm taking the guy that looks like the rock star compared to me. That's what I'm taking.
And I know where to get you a knockoff purse, so that's important.
Without dying. Awesome. Thanks, bro.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a fun. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rod.
And there you have it, another high-octane episode of the Ride and Style podcast, revved up and ready to go. Your hosts, Jesse Stoddard and Josh Poulsen, shifted your automotive game into overdrive. If you're hungry for more insights, trends, and game-changing interviews from the automotive restyling universe, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a glowing review. We'd also love for you to share this podcast with your gearheads, installers, and auto lovers network. Because remember, knowledge is power, but shared knowledge turbocharges the whole industry. For more expert resources to supercharge your business, cruise on over to autostylemarketing.com, your one-stop shop for everything automotive marketing. Until next time, keep those wheels spinning and your passion ignited. Thank you for riding in style with us. See you on the next lap.